previously on Supa-Saturday's DrawAlong.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturday, 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 DrawAlong.
Right. That's the third time that I've done that. Started the podcast, the stream, with my mic muted. Totally unforgivable. I've just been talking to myself for the last 2 minutes. I deserve some sort of penalty for that. But here we go. I'm going to start again. Hello, my name is Jerry Hinds. Thanks for joining me here once again on the Supa-Saturday's DrawAlong. It's where I ask you to get your pencils, stylus, and brushes at the ready and follow me in various drawing exercises. We are currently working on the Spy Master. We finished our penciling last week, our pencil rendering. So let me just shift my view here so you can better see what I'm talking about. So what have we been doing recently? We did the fundamental penciling on one layer. Then we got into our spotting. Well, we got a general light source that's coming from above. So these are the shadows, what we call the spotting. Then I got into hatching techniques, right? If you were here for that. Originally, the way I used to shade was with blacks, with black spikes, hatching coming out of the blacks. And I showed that methodology. Then in later life, what I call the image style of hatching, you had what I call gradations coming out of the black. So you can see it's still dark going to light. But one way, you drag the darkness out into the light with spikes going into the light, or you put gradients going into the light. And if you combine the two, you have something called cross-hatching. So we're going to go through all of this. Before the inking, I want to start with something I call key lines. These are the only pieces of detail that go around boundaries. So you have the outside of the figure, you will have the lines that separate the different colors in the costume. This is primarily so when you come to digitally color, you can paint bucket your detail into position faster. So I'm going to get rid of my spotting and hatching, leave my fundamental detail. I'm going to knock that back in opacity. So here's my inking key lines red. And at this size, I'm working at a size called A4. I'm not sure what that is Imperial, because I know in the US, whoops, my microphone's a bit far away from me there. Let me bring it a bit closer. I know in the US, you still deal with the Imperial, and I've lost touch of my sense of imperialism. I mean, I'm from the UK. We used to use inches as well and feet. But back in the 1970s, we shifted to the metric system, and I've lost touch. But my brush size, which you will understand, is 6 pixels. I'm going to make it 7 for this exercise. And the paper is A4. I think it's called US International 10 inches by something like that. So I'm going to put in my key lines first. Now I'm inking digitally, and sometimes it's hard to keep a steady hand when you're working digitally. And there's a function here called stabilization, which does help. And this is unique to Clip Studio Paint. I'm using Clip Studio Paint in the background. I'm using Clip Studio Paint. And of course, you can do this in Photoshop. Hold on, my music's a bit loud. You can do this in Photoshop, but Clip Studio Paint, I would say, rules comics. All the stuff that we do involved in comic drawing. So I must remember, I'm going to zoom in close so you can really see what I'm doing. So I'm going for the key line. Now what do I mean by that? I'm not going to put this line in here and go down this contour. That's most typical, right? All I want is this. And I'm going to stop there. Because when I come to drop my coloring in, I don't want any inner detail to disturb me. Now these dials, or these shapes on the back of Spy Master's arms and on the inner, these are separate. So these need a complete key line going around them. Now these are inorganic material. So sometimes with inorganic stuff, I might use a dead weight line tool. But here, those circles, for some reason, are making me work a thick and thin line. So you'll notice I'm putting some feeling in this inking, you could say. And the light source is coming from above. So the lines which are pointing away from us, generally, if facing downwards, I'm going to make those lines a little bit thicker. I learned that from an inker named Gary Martin, who inks the Nexus independent series. That dial on the back of his hand is a different color. Actually, it's not a dial, it's a blaster. So here, coming on the tricep, a bit thinner. Underside, away from the light, I get a bit thicker. I get thin, thick, thin. Remember, we're doing key lines. Thin, thick, thin, thick. And as Gary Martin explained in that fantastic book on inking, a weight of line can actually indicate light source. It's a really good book. Two books that I read on the subject of drawing, comic drawing, let's say, though not really specific to comic drawing. It's the legendary book, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Whether you're interested in comics or manga or whatever, that book is a must read. Very, very, very informative on all aspects of drawing, in fact. Doesn't matter what you want to draw. There are certain basic lessons in that book that are truly fantastic. How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And then by Gary Martin, I think it's called The Art of Inking, something like that. And he's most famous for his work on the Nexus series, where I believe he inks Mike Barron, another modern day industry legend, we can call him. So we can see one of those pods going behind Spine Masters 5 forearm. I just got out of bed and I've developed the sniffles. Had no trace of it when I went to bed last night. No trace whatsoever. So here we are. Got those dials in. Thick, thin. Now this is on the underside. So give us a nice big bulky bicep. Remember, key lines? We don't want any detail, any inner detail. Now see, I was a naughty boy there. His chest piece, or this underarm part, is in fact the same color as his arm in the costume. So this line here is not required. Not for the process that we're doing inking wise. Now his costume comes down the outer. Something that I want to explain today, that when I ink, I deal with primarily 3 weights of line. The thickest is the outer key line, what we're doing at the moment. So I'm just putting a bit more here. This is the thickest of all of my lines. Outer key line. Next thickness is the borders. So the costume, for example, this line here, you notice it's not as thick as the key line. And if you're really worried about keeping the right thickness, you can always go in. If you're working traditionally, you can simply use a different weight of brush or pen. Clip Studio paint, of course, has touch sensitivity. And I'm using a Wacom Cintiq, or you might be using a Huion or something else. You know you've got touch sensitivity. So you can control the line weight. But if you're a bit nervous about that, just set a different thickness of brush. And that will stop you from going too thick or too thin. So that's 2 basic line weights we got in here. Now we're going to go to the head. The head needs its own. The head is slightly different colors to the body. So I'm going to go right around the head here. I'm going to treat the head as its own object. Now there's something in Clip Studio Paint called the symmetry pen, which will, you can do one side of this head and the other head will be done automatically, which is a great tool. But I'm going full kind of traditional in this discipline because I do like to still practice symmetry when I get the chance. But if it's a tight deadline, things are looking a bit iffy, I will use the symmetry tool. Now the dial and this decor on his head is the same color. So I want the costume line here. I'm going to come up here and the side. And this line here. And remember, this is what I call a costume contour. So this line is thinner than our key line stuff. The costume comes up. He's got like eyebrows drawn into his costume. A very nefarious looking character. Absolutely brilliant though. Let me show you why I'm so inspired by this character here. Look at this. Now, through the eyes of a child, when I was young, you're talking 1970s here, yeah? When I saw this comic cover, the Spy Master blasting Iron Man, I think I mentioned this on the past episode. Oh, excuse me. Oh dear. I've woken up with the sniffles. As luck would have it. I am a bit of a sinus sufferer, so it's not such big news, but I digress. Yes, here's the original cover where I first saw Spy Master as a kid. And if I'm not mistaken, this cover's by an artist named Sal Buscema. Looks like John Buscema. It could be. Actually, it was the artist on the book I just mentioned, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. But I think it's Sal Buscema. And this action here, absolutely, I was very depressed. You know, I took it very hard when I was a little kid. And here's Spy Master inside, as drawn by Don Heck. And the vibe, oh man, these sort of Silver Age and Bronze Age comics here. People ask you, do you think you would like to live forever? I don't think I like to live forever, but I would certainly like to live for a very long time because the amount of comic art that I just like to stare at, I never get sick of that. So Spy Master's costume design here. The MASCOT comes down the inner and it goes down the outer. There. Remember, these costume lines are thinner. Then all of in here is the same color, but I'm going to put a thick key line around his eyes. What is it they say? Eyes are the window to the soul. And you'll find that if you can somehow accentuate eyes, the character will have what I call more gravity. I've not got the right feeling in that. Let me. I've got a bit of a contradiction in my symmetry here. I had this more of a. I like it more on this side. It's kind of coming down and hugging the contours a bit more. And the inner eye comes in and actually meets the line. I'm going to thin this part in here. Yes, get that menacing gaze of the Spy Master. Come down the outside. And the detail on the face is actually kind of like his expressions within his mask, which is very unique. But it's detail, and we're not going to ink that on this layer. Now we come to the costume, and this, all we want to ink is the outer line of the circle. If this was more inorganic, I would ink this with a mechanical tool, like how you might use, you know, when you're inking traditionally, you use circles or irregular shaped stencils. But for this, it's on the costume. It could be material like. So I'm going to treat it a bit more organically. And do it freehand. Freehand, baby. There. So no inner detail. No inner detail for that. We're going to come back to that later. So now we come to the belt. The belt is fundamentally all one color. So we want to go around the outside of the belt. Its pockets are the same color as the belt. So we treat them as part of the belt. And this is an object on top of another object. And this is what I call the third thickness. It's not quite as thick as an outer keyline always. It could be similar. It could be the same, in fact. But I keep it somewhere between the outer line keyline thickness. So I'm making a bit of a mess here. I keep it somewhere between the outer keyline thickness and costume contour line thicknesses. As I said, it doesn't have to be exactly thinner than the outer keyline, but I like it when it's just slightly thinner. Now look at me. I'm getting confused with my own technique. We don't need that inner line here because actually it's a different, I tell a lie, it's a different shade of green. So indeed, we do need to put in a keyline on the belt logo. And this is metal. And you notice how that line I've done here is quite dead weight. It's not varying in size because the belt looks metallic. And when I get to inorganic stuff, I tend to keep my lines less varied, less thick and thin. So here's the bottom of the belt. See, thickish line. Not quite as thick as the outer key line, but thicker than in the detail. Now the S is a different color. So we have to go through and ink the S. Now I'm not putting much of a variance in the lines here. I'm treating this S as being somewhat inorganic. What we mustn't do though is forget the perspective on this S. It's at a very slanted angle. You know, I tell you, when it comes to drawing right, getting your angles right on stuff really makes all the difference. Now this deco on this belt, it's a different color. It's a different shade of green. So like the ovals on the back of the forearms, these have got to be inked at this stage. I see we've got a few viewers. Thanks so much for joining in. And by all means, drop me a question in the comments if you have any questions whatsoever. So this pouch is a different green to the back of the belt. So it gets its own key line. Now you see it's in front of the leg here. So I'm going to give it quite a thick key line. It's definitely an object on top of an object. Here we have the gun pouch. So we go around the outside. Now this is probably made of leather. So, that's horrible, Jerry Hinds. I'm going to put a bit of feeling into this decor here. Here. A bit of feeling in there. And the bottom edge, which is away from the light source. So we're putting a decent piece of shadow there. My constant challenge with this stream is to always remember to zoom in. I'm working on a 24-inch Cintiq, so I can ink from quite a distance away. But of course, if you're watching at home or on your device, it's not so interesting when you can't really see what I'm doing. Now here's a gun. This is inorganic. So I'm using dead weight lines in here. Now I'm only keylining what goes around the gun. The rest of that pouch is one color. So even this, we should not be having this. This is what we call inner detail. When it comes to the coloring process, this really does make life a lot easier. So now we come to the shorts. This line is a bit heavy-handed, Jerry. You know, I can't make out what my name is. I can't make my mind up on what my name is. Of course, for long form, my name is Jerome. But here in Singapore, it's not the easiest name to pronounce. So I would use my childhood interpretation. A lot of people used to call me Jerry. My wife, who is Singaporean, I met in UK, always preferred to call me Jerome. So when I came out here in the 90s, suddenly I was Jerome. But as I said, some of the locals didn't find that as easy to pronounce. So then I became Jerry again. But as I get older, I kind of like the sound of Jerome. So I started using it again. But I don't mind what anyone calls me. As George Foreman says, or said, the late great George Foreman, the legendary boxer, he said, you can call me anything you like, just make sure you call me in time for dinner. Speaking of dinner, it's my wife's birthday in a couple of days' time, and we're going out for a very nice Korean lunch later on. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm especially looking forward to it because I'm actually on a diet at the moment. I'm trying to lose a bit of weight. On the wrong side of 60. And I still like playing football, or what you guys in America call soccer. And a couple of the teams that I play with, a lot of the guys on the pitch are 1/3 my age. So you can imagine trying to keep up with this lot. It's not easy. And when you're walking around with a good few pounds extra that you shouldn't have, I could make life easier for myself by not being so gluttonous. So when I go out for my lovely Korean lunch later on, I can't go crazy. I've got to keep some level of composure. I mean, I could go crazy, but nah, I'm trying to get in shape. With Christmas just around the corner, I have to put a certain amount of effort into that as well. I'm the one who always cooks the turkey, but I'm on what you call a keto diet, which is low carbs. So my legendary Barbadian stuffing. Now when I say Barbadian, I mean Barbados, not barbarian. I told you not long ago that my name of Jerome gives certain people difficulty in pronunciation. Another one where I had a very tricky time was when I would tell locals that I'm British and of Barbadian descent. They thought I was saying barbarian. So can you picture that? Jerome the Barbarian. That would make for an interesting comic concept. Eat your heart out, Conan. Whoops. Here we are. Just finishing the key line on his right foot. Let's zoom out and see what we got going on. Now this top part of the boot is a different color, so I can put this contour in. How lovely. Now I just glanced up at my screen and I see that there's a comment. Now is it a good or is it a bad comment? Let's check it out. Oh, Stacy's back in the house. Hello, and thanks from Stacy. Stacy's such a regular, acres of movies. There's a big discussion here at the Madness Entertainment Group. A lot of the guys are wondering, is Stacy real? Is she real? Or is she a bot? Stacy, if you're not a robot, ask me a question pertaining to something that I've said earlier in this podcast. Prove to me that you can actually listen to what I'm saying and formulate a question. I'm going to try and crack the mystery tonight on if whether or not Stacy is of sentient life or if she is in fact a load of binary ones and zeros. I'm going to keep an eye on that link and see if she's able to rise to that task and put the debate to bed once and for all. Stacy's real or Stacy is cyber. The mystery of the stream, of the regular stream attendee. Lower foot. Early in the series, we had a whole episode on how to draw feet and hands. I'm trying to touch on all the subjects that I think are most useful to comic artists, the ones that give the most trouble. Right, they're almost there with our key lines. We still got this blaster dial on the back of the forearm. Remember, no inner detail. We're just doing costume contours and outer key line on one layer. Good. So we got that. So I'm going to lock that. I can be very stubborn and not lock my layers. And you know, when you get into the flow of stuff, very easily, you can end up on the wrong layer, man. And no matter how many times that happens, That's me. Many occasion. Right. So we've got the fundamental contours and outer key lines of the character. Next comes what I call inking inner contours. So this is where we put in this key information that we've got here. This line is key. That's quite an important line. Here. All of this good stuff. And I don't want to make this process too complex. I'm going to put in my muscle on this layer as well. At this stage as well, you might find that there are bits of penciling that you've done prior that you want to maybe amend it slightly. So I do use this time here as well to do what I call tidy up. Tidy up certain bits of detail. This chest contour here, I think it's quite an important piece of information. So basically, all the information that we did on our final pencil render, this is what we're going to embellish. That's a great word, right? I remember the first time I ever saw in a comic an inker referred to as an embellisher. And who do you think used that term? Of course, it had to be the late and great Stan Lee. But I was a young kid, I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't even know what the word embellish was. I learned a lot of stuff from comics that was a bit beyond my years. I remember once I went to school and I asked my school teacher, what does metamorphosis mean? And she says, he was Welsh, so she had a strange accent. Her name was Mrs. Davis. She goes, why are you asking such a question, Jerry? And the reason was, one of my favorite characters at the time was Marvel of the Kree existence. He went to a massive metamorphosis, as the comic said. And I did not know what that word meant. Not a clue. But she said, it means change, Jerry. Which made sense. Because when you read the comic, Captain Marvel had a big change. In fact, Marvel, whose Earth identity was Dr. Walter Lawson, he used to have white hair, silver hair. And after his metamorphosis, Captain Marvel's hair turned yellow. Now, I don't know what made Jim Starlin, man, another king of comics. I don't know what made him write such a thing. But the reason why you may see remnants of my hair looks a bit yellow. Hang on, let me switch this up so you can have a proper look at my head. Hang on. Right. Can you see bits of my hair are yellow? Ignore the gray, but I love the gray as well. Why is that? Because as I said, Captain Marvel used to have white or gray hair, if you like. So I dyed my hair yellow because of Captain Marvel. I know. A 60-year-old man dyeing his hair yellow because of a comic book character is a bit dodgy, but you only live once. And now that the dye is growing out, I'm going through another metamorphosis. I'm becoming the silver top, the silver-haired Captain Marvel. So I've had them all, mate. I've had them all. How about that? You don't get more Marvel than Jerome Hinds. I went through the metamorphosis, albeit reverse. But what's the reverse metamorphosis between friends, eh? If you can't have a bit of reverse metamorphosis, what can you have? So we're back to our dial. The one that blasted my friend Iron Man.
Crashing your party.
What's up, boss man?
Hold on, I gotta kill some volume. All right, here we go. I have with me Isaac.
Your son, the grandson.
Grandson. Yeah, grandson. I need you to tell him your catchphrase.
Keep those pencils light. Yeah.
Dude, there you go. He's doing a new drawing, and he started out and he's doing the head with the line, you know, that, and he did it really dark, and I'm like, dude, you ain't gonna be able to erase that. Keep your pencils light. There you go.
Oh, so this is the talent that did the Ozzy,
Yes.
the Ozzy drawing.
Yes, it is.
Oh, excellent, man. So I didn't catch his name. I didn't catch your name. What's your name?
Isaac.
Isaac. All right, Isaac. Yes, Isaac. You can't go wrong. You always keep those pencils light.
They can get darker as you need to, and you don't have to erase as much.
Yeah, don't worry, Isaac. We all do that. We make a mistake, and we think that by going over it, we're going to correct it. But we end up with a dark mistake.
Mm-hmm.
We all do that. That's part of the journey, so to speak.
See how light his pencils are in the beginning, and then he comes back with the darker line. Ready? All right. You can go play with your friends now.
Thanks, Isaac. Thanks for dropping by.
He's got a friend that's from out of town, so he's on his way dipping out to go visit with his friends. So,
All right.
I just wanted him to catch that from you. Just, you know, I told him, but he needs to hear it from a pro.
No, man, his drawing in the Ozzy book is really... How old is he? How old is Isaac? Pops?
He's 12.
Yeah, man. That's a really good drawing. He's definitely got some potential there.
Well, I mean, I told him a couple of places where he needed to darken. But for the most part, that's his drawing. I mean, it's all his drawing. I just went, you need to make that part darker. Like under the sleeve, right? That needed to be in shadow, right? I told him he needed to darken that out. Just little stuff like that. But he drew it. He drew. He's like, awesome freaking art, man. He blew me away when he showed it to me. And I was just like right away nitpicking it. And if it wasn't no good, I wouldn't have been nitpicking it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I mean, straight up. I was like, oh, you can improve that. You can make that better. You can make that better. We're going to put this in the book.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
So, did you get him to sign my copy of the book?
Yes. He signed it on both the front. I think he signed both the page and the dedication page. And I signed it for you, too.
Nice one. Sorted, my son. Sorted.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. Now I'm going to let you go about your business. You still got some time. So, here you go. Anybody who's watching this guy, man, there's stuff to learn here. All right? There's stuff to learn here. Hang out. Check it out. Peace.
Peace. That was Pops dropping in. If you're new to this stream, Pops is the guy behind the Madness Entertainment Network, or Madness Entertainment Group. And that was him dropping in with his grandson, Isaac. who is looking to be a pretty decent artist. Pretty good. We've got all of us here at the Madness Entertainment Group. We've got a tribute book to the late, great Ozzy Osbourne, where a lot of us have contributed original renditions of the man himself. And Isaac, at the tender age, is now a published artist at the tender age of 12, because he's got a great image in there of Ozzy. In fact, why am I talking so much? Let me quickly share with you the trailer from the Ozzy book that's available from Madness Entertainment Group. You'll find the link in the description here. I'm going to play the trailer. The trailer is really, really good. Pops did say who did it, but I can't remember who it was now. Really good trailer. Can you just take a minute and watch this? This is the Madness Entertainment Group tribute book to the late, great Ozzy Osbourne. Please do pick up a copy at the link in the description.
Ozzy, what are you doing? Come and have a look at this lovely book that was sent over.
You're wrapping in the perpendicular.
Oh, go on and spit the bat out your mouth. No one can understand you like that.
Very now, 6 out of 5 dentists and all.
Oh, well, that's not much better. Ozzy, why don't you sing to me? I can always understand you when you sing to me.
Fucking my brains. What is this my publisher sent me? Inked in black with art so sweet.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
That is such a good ad. I really like that. Oh, like, yeah. Brilliant. Oh, Pop said, wait till you see his sister's art. Oh, so looks like if Isaac's sister can draw as well. 30-something. So 30-something media made that trailer. So I don't know if they do this commercially for anyone, but I'd certainly hit them up. If you're interested in a trailer like that, drop us a line and Pops can hook you up with them. Really good trailer there. It's very funny. Yeah. Just going to explain something here. You notice that this bit of inking that I'm doing, the pattern on Spy Master's chest, I'm quilting it in that I'm giving it a thick and thin kind of feel. So this is going to make it look like if it's actually embroidered or quilted. Now, of course, in the 1970s and 1960s, the comic artists didn't really get into this kind of detail. And I kind of like that. But you know, in this learning journey, sometimes you get a feeling to do something. And very hard to define, you know, when you want to break certain rules or certain customs. And I find sometimes adding a bit of texture in places doesn't change that, what I call a silver or Bronze Age vibe. And I also do this when I draw Spider-Man. When I do his webbing, I use a thick and thin quilted line like this. You know, in the movies, Spider-Man, his costume is kind of got a thickness. The lines. And I kind of like that. You know, sometimes you get modern takes. And like, okay, I don't mind admitting, I'm an old comic book guy. And as you know, with a lot of old people, we don't take kindly to change all the time. But sometimes you see some things that are different Excuse me. My sinuses, like I said, are giving me a few problems. Yeah, sometimes there are some changes that happen. And even as a miserable old git, you have to concede, you know what, I kind of like that. That certainly happened with Image Comics. There were some things they had going on there, art-wise, that was very different to what I was used to. And I had to respect it. One thing that's very prevalent within the image phenomena is the question of a certain gentleman named Rob Liefeld. I think I've mentioned this before on the stream. He has his own interpretations on certain aspects of human anatomy, and a lot of people like to, how can I say, criticize some of the things that Mr. Liefeld has done anatomically. Now, I personally, I do not have the slightest problem with whatever he draws. Because what I can say is, for me personally, he's achieved something that every artist needs to achieve. And no, I'm not going to say great fame and fortune. He has achieved those things, but that's not the primary thing. It is one of the things. You don't want to be drawing and no one has any appreciation for what you're doing, but that is often a part of life for an artist. We've all heard of starving artists. There's many of us, right? The part of Mr. Liefeld that I like, especially, is that he has his way of interpretation of reality. And I would go as far as to say that he is a genius. And the reason why I say that is that he is drawing things I'm so sorry about that. I can see some of you haven't gone anywhere. My computer died. And what's one of my catchphrases here? You heard Pops come in and told me to say my catchphrase, right? One of my catchphrases, of course, the one that Pops asked me to tell his grandson is, keep those pencils light. Good. What's the other catchphrase? Save. And I didn't do it. I've lost a bit of information. Not all, but what we were just doing. It's gone. I've got to do some of this inking again. My computer totally died. I'm so sorry about that. I had to reboot. Sorry, look all this. Gothic said, did show end? My computer kind of ended, but I'm back. Oh man, I'm so sorry. And he says, ink in black with art so sweet. Ah, Ozzy Osbourne, nice one. Oh man, no, I'm Gothic. The show did not end. So sorry. And it says intermission. Well, it was kind of. So sorry, my computer died. So let's get back to business. God damn. Right. So where was I? I'm going to go back to my quoted logo. Remember that? Can you sit through that again? Oh, I tell you what. I'll do something different. Nah. Keep it disciplined, Jerry Hinds. Keep it disciplined, son. Okay. So if you missed the quilted logo the first time, hold on, let me switch on my aircon. It's very hot here in Singapore. And my aircon needs to be switched on again. Right. So we're back. Because Edmund says save every 5 minutes. I normally save every 5 seconds. I tell you what it was. I was too busy talking. And I didn't think about my legendary save. God damn. I think Pops would need to deduct my pay. How about that? Right. Look at the cut of my pen is even changed. The cut of my brush. I have no idea how long I was talking to myself either. I was going on about Rob Liefeld. I'm not even sure if you heard any of that. Can anyone there? I says, oh, hang on, there's a message here. We're having trouble streaming to your destination. Is it possible the stream was ended or deleted on the destination? This can also occur if the RTMP server URL or stream. Okay, I've got a technical message there. I'm not sure what that means. But life goes on. Apparently it wasn't long that I was gone. That's good enough then. Thank goodness. So where was I? I'm going to get back to my quilted logo. Okay, I'm here until 7:30, so I've still got 30 minutes left. We should finish all the major inking in time for the spotting next week. But let's get back to business. I can see a few of you are watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm sorry that I took an unplanned intermission, but such is life. So I was talking about my quilted logo here, a thick and a thin thing that I like to do on certain patterns. I do it on my Spider-Man webbing when I draw the wall crawler. So yeah, before I was so rudely interrupted by frozen digital bits, or what it was that caused that, I was talking about the man, the living legend, Robert Liefeld, and why I deem him to be a genius. Because, as I said, he has, okay, I said this, but I don't know, I'm not sure if you actually heard it, so I'll say it again. He has an interpretation of reality as he sees it. And even if he draws something which technically is outside of reality, he's able to transform the viewer into his world. He inspired a lot of young people to pick up a pencil. Now, I don't care what you're doing. If you can inspire a young mind to do something, there's a strong likelihood that there's some genius about what you're doing. And the other thing that Mr. Liefeld portrays is an attitude. Whether or not you like what he's doing, when he's drawing, his attitude comes through. And that cannot be faked. You could be the greatest technical artist in the world. If you cannot provoke emotion, I don't think you're as meaningful as a person who can provoke emotion. That's my personal opinion. And Liefeld would do some stuff absolutely ridiculous. But man, it's happening. I really appreciated the stuff that he did. So I'm often at loggerheads with my peers, but such is life. Right. Look at that. My quilted logo is back. So that prompts me to do what?
Save!
Again.
Save!
So here we are. I'm using a Mac, so it's Command S. Look at that. You see that? It's asking me to overwrite. See, something really dodgy happened. I'm going to save this as Spy Master 2. There's something very dodgy going on there. You saw that live on the Madness Entertainment Group. The computer crashed. It did not want to save the original Spy Master. And it asked me if I wanted to overwrite something. That's a very dangerous message. So the best thing to do is save it under a separate name. That's the safest thing to do. I'm going to save again. Okay, it did it without asking questions. Because listen, I spent 30 odd years in the advertising and design industry. And I was fortunate enough to be in an advertising agency back in the mid 1980s that endorsed the new Mac technology very early on. So you'll find that a lot of creative directors, I eventually moved on to be a creative and art director and chief copywriter. And you'll find that a lot of my peers, if you find men in their early 60s now, they're not so good with technology, that are from the industry, because there was a lot of resistance to it. But I've always been, I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box. I've always been quite adept to change. I'm not as bad as some of my peers. Not the best, but certainly not the worst. I'm not as much as an old git, as we say in England. I could be worse. Could be much worse. Let me just check. Did I miss any comments when it bombed? Oh, looks like Rumble shut down. Or maybe that caused the glitch in the matrix. Interesting. Interesting. Interesting concept. My wife thinks that I might have a bit of Tourette's. Sometimes I hear things and then I can't stop saying it. Like, there's an old comedy series from the US named ALF, Alien Life Form. And here in Singapore, on the Hits cable network, they're running reruns of ALF. And I mean, this is 40 years after it originally aired. And when it was originally on TV, I was very busy with my work. As I mentioned, I was in advertising and design. Now, I was, I dare say, a bit of a naughty boy at school. I wasn't a great studier. So I didn't have any kind of art degree or even a diploma. All I had was a couple of O-levels and A-levels in art and graphic design. So to get into the industry, I had to work very hard. And around the time when Alf was on television, I was so busy, doing hands-on assignments.
Here's what I've found.
Shut up, Siri. The hell. There's some ghosts in the machines tonight, I tell you. Extraordinary. So where was I before I was so rudely interrupted by Siri? Yes, I was very, very busy picking up on the things that I would have picked up had I gone to college. People ask me if college is a waste of time. You could say so for certain people with certain ambitions and skill sets. But as an artist, what I missed out on is when you're in higher education, you have time to really experiment and what I would say, find yourself creatively. Those years of experimentation could be golden. Now, if you're some sort of genius, like Mark Zuckerberg or something, I'm not convinced you need to go to college. These guys like Bill Gates and did Elon Musk finish college? I'm not sure, but these guys are geniuses, and they've got something to do, man. You can't be doing that anything too mundane at the age of your early 20s. That's when you're really a go-getter. And I think that was one of my saving graces in my early 20s, because I didn't have the education to fall back on. I became very go-getting. And go-getting, still stupid, but go-getting. Now, when I was very young, I made quite a lot of money doing this because I endorsed the Mac. And, I could draw traditionally and digitally. And I made quite a lot of money. I even bought myself an old Porsche. But yes, I was a very, very stupid man. Young man. And I squandered a lot of it. Such is life. Now, how did we get onto all of that when talking about Rob Liefeld? The thing is, when you see there are things that young artists might try, I think Rob Liefeld fits this. He had an unbridled spirit. And he just did things that the other guys weren't really doing. And I think he drew his first comic book at the age of 18. Something ridiculous like that. And again, don't let anyone kid you. His first comic books were half decent. They were good. And he did that before he was 20 years old. So I think a lot of the haters, I think some of it is jealousy. And on top of that, he was a good-looking young man. And he was a part-time underwear model for some designer brand? Oh man, I think people were just jealous. Jealousy. Sorry, I went into my DJ voice there. I remember what I was talking about. I was talking about my wife accusing me of having Tourette's because I said something about an interesting concept, and it was ALF, alien life form. My God, I'm rambling here. Will you please shut up? Will you please shut up, Jerome? Well, anyway, ALF, right? The first time ALF saw a toilet flush, he says, interesting concept. I've been thinking about that line for months now. Because you think, what does it mean to be a human being, right? And one thing that I can't explain is humor. I cannot rationalize why we find certain things funny and why we might not find it funny. And if you think of the joke of flushing a toilet, looking at it, and then saying, interesting concept. That absolutely cracked me up. But if you ask me why that's funny, I haven't got a clue. Hang on a second. Okay, we've got some messages here. What's this? Hey, kitty. Oh, yes. Alf wanted to eat the cat. Yep. Alf was great, man. Alf fanatic now. 40 years after the fact. Ridiculous. The ending got dark fast. I've not seen the end of the series, so don't spoil. Don't give me a spoiler. Oh man. Was it Alf? What does that say? I also love that they mentioned Alf in the movie The Lord of the Flies. Oh, they did they? I didn't know that. But yeah, it's an ingenious TV series. Okay, so after all that talking, we've kind of finished our main part of the inking. We've got our outer contours, we've got our inner contours. So just a quick recap. We do the outer contours because when we come to color, we can paint bucket, we can drop color into these areas very quickly. So then we got our inner contours. Oh, look, this is where my computer crashed. His dial isn't finished. Oh, am I recording my time lapse? I'm not. I'm meant to record my time lapse when I'm doing this. Naughty boy. I lost this information here. I'm going to go thick, thin, thick, thin, thick, thin, thin, thick, thin. How long have I got left? 15 minutes. Save. Now, I'm wondering if I should try to get into the spotting now or have some fun with you fine people and do some lateral stuff and get to the spotting next week. Hang on, we've got a contour here that's missing. Save. I got that save. Exclaiming save comes from an old creative director I worked with. He was Scottish. His name was Mike Wallace. And we'd be in the studio and suddenly we'd hear, save. Now you got to remember, back in the 80s, computers would crash a lot more frequently than they do now. So he had good calls. Many a time, I tell you, many a time in the studio, you would hear. I'm not kidding, mate. And when you hear that, you know the computer crashes, someone hadn't saved. Oh, Lord. Okay, so we've got our main inking in. And okay, let me just check on the comments, make sure I haven't missed anything. Drawing and looking at what you find people are saying isn't easy. Okay, so did you see the movie after the series? No, I did not. You mean there's an Alf movie? What's this? Every young comic art would pause whatever they were doing when the Levi's commercial came on. Ah, okay. Now listen, young man, this is a family-friendly show. This is Supa-Saturday's DrawAlong. I think I know it. I mean, you got advertising campaigns there in America that we didn't have in the UK. Well, I think I can guess what young Mr. Bardillo is talking about there. That gentleman, Edwin Bardillo, he is a regular here on the Madness Entertainment Group, and I was with him just early this morning online with Late Night Art Attack. And you know what? Let me show you what happened on Late Night Art Attack earlier. I got a brief recap here. We can have a look at that for a bit of fun. Let's have some fun. This was earlier today on. Do I have that? Yes, I think. Did I upload it? No, I didn't upload it. I tell a lie. I thought I did. I thought I uploaded our recap from today. No, I didn't. Sorry about that. Poor preparation, and you call yourself an artist. That's probably why it was poor preparation. God damn. Okay, bring the music back. Bring it back, boy. There we are. Good. So we got our first round of inking in. We've got how long? 10 minutes. Now the spotting that we're going to have to do is this. And I'm wondering if I should start this now, or someone asked me, sometimes, quite often when I'm doing Comic Cons in different streams, etc., people would often ask me, Jerry, what exactly do you do? And you know what? I'm going to show you what I do. What pays the bills, or comes as close as possible as paying bills. Well, I do things like this. Let's have a look. Oh, something that's interesting that's coming up. I'm going to show you in the trailer later. Is you can see the file is loading. There's a Kickstarter coming up, and they have an art book that will be available, and it's called How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone. So Thunder Zone is where one of my comics currently go out from, named Supercross. And because over the last 2 years, I've had to do a lot of drawing of the characters. So I said to the editor-in-chief, Mr. Dan Sen, who's been on the Madness Entertainment Group podcast before. In fact, he introduced me to the network, Pops in the gang here. So we said, yeah, why not? Put out a book covering a lot of stuff that you've done. So it's like, if I show you the index, let's look at the index page. This is book 1. So we're going to look at faces and bust construction. Tough stuff, hands and feet, like what we're doing here on Supa-Saturdays. We cover some of that. Then full-length construction and full-length construction with props. Let me zoom in. Sorry, let me zoom in. So we're going to, in the book, we cover faces and bust construction. Hold on, my screen has gone a bit funny up here. Why is that? Can you see my layout properly? My computer's really, it's some really strange goings on here. My display here, since it bombed out right, my display here looks really odd. Hang on. Okay, that looks a bit more normal now. That looks a bit more civil. Hang on, let me bring it back. Right, you can see it a bit more clearly now, right? Yes. So this art book that I'm doing for Thunder Zone covers things like that. It will be full-length construction with props, but there'll be no foreshortening. That will be in book 2. So a typical exercise that we're having here is, this is a character from my book, Sweet Tooth, how I would construct that from scratch. And if you've been tuning in here, you know we've been through all of this here, starting from a skeleton. And then let's look at, this is an interesting one. When drawing a gun, someone holding a gun, it's a good idea to draw the gun first, then attach the hand. We would often draw the hand first, which you can do when you're a bit more experienced. That is actually okay to do that. But I remember, as a young artist, if I'd known this, I would have been a much better artist. You draw the prop first. Same principle if you're drawing someone sat in a chair, draw the chair first. It's actually easier to draw the person after that. You know, here's another interesting one for that. And this was actually from an image that I did for Thunder Zone Comics. Then his feet, drawing feet, etc., all good stuff. Constructing full-length characters. Get the skeleton. Good old skeleton. What we're doing here on Supa-Saturdays. Knowing where the different limbs, how they're traveling, contours, I call it. Then the rendering, etc. So I've got that coming out. I do this sort of stuff, you know. Then there's the corporate work. Let me see if I can find an example here that I can open quickly. Because what really pays well are corporate commissions, of course, right? So like, there's like this. This was for a client that actually makes, they make eyewear, no glasses. These files are bigger than I realized. So here, this is the client I drew as a caricature. And then here, the guide of how they sell glasses. They had this character called the Mentorex. They wanted me to do as a man this actually exists, the guy in a costume. And the journey of selling glasses. So this was a whole big campaign, big seminar, loads of different bits of artwork. It's called Own Your Superpower. It is, the power in sales, you'd say. So things like this, because I spent many years in advertising, corporate commissions are a good source of income for me because I understand that world. Being able to do it in very comic centric, like this. This is for a youth awards here. So drawing this guy, he's a big person here in the youth community, and then doing these caricatures. This is a award. I think it was awarded to him at a gift ceremony. So things like this is what I generally do. And this was a fun assignment. We often submit for a calendar that goes out to clients, and I had to draw a horse. So I painted this image of a horse. This is for a calendar for a client. 2 submissions, and this was for another entry into the calendar. So you can see it's very, very varied. What I like about what I do is that no 2 days are the same. And of course, coming out the weekend, and I do this stream with you fine people. How long we got left? 4 minutes. Okay, people. So I'm going to run a few trailers. Let me get back to have a brief recap. I'm going to run a few trailers for things on sale that I'm involved with. So here we are back to Spy Master. So we finished our basic inking. Let me turn off the pencils. Let's have a quick zoom in. Again, we started with the fundamental key lines. This is so we can drop our color in quickly when we get to the coloring process in a couple of weeks' time. Then the main inner contours. These are the other costume lines and the main contours of the muscle structure. Next week, we will start inking the spotting, and we will get to the first pass of hatching, spikes, then gradation. And we may get all of that done next week. We'll see. But at the moment, we're at this point. Thanks so much again for tuning in. It's been great. It's always great doing this. I got a sinking chair here. I think I mentioned this last week. I think I'll buy myself a chair for Christmas. How about that? Or I can tell the family. I say, wifey and kids, your marvelous father needs a new chair. How about that? Thanks again for tuning in. I'm going to finish off here with a couple of trailers for things that I'm involved in. Hang on a second, what's this? So we got a message here. Edwin, draw the still life first because it's stationary. Then draw the life form to embrace the object. Ah, okay, an interpretation of the same thing that I was saying. You know, when you're drawing props, people holding props or sat in a chair. It's actually easy to draw the prop first, but when you're young, and make sure Pops tells his grandson this, when you're young, we all try to draw the person first. It's natural. We just do that. But in fact, you draw the prop first, and it's actually much easier. Right, so yeah, once again, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to run a few trailers here of things that I'm involved in. I ran the Ozzy trailer earlier. At Madness Entertainment Group, we have a tribute book. A lot of the artists here, all of the usual guys that you see here, we've all submitted to it. It's a great book. It's available now at fundmycomic.com. Links are in the description. And there's a few other things that I'm involved in, and I'm going to run those trailers now before we get to the end credits. Thanks once again for tuning in. It's so much greatly appreciated. My name is Jerry Hinds. Look out for the stuff that I'm involved in. As I said, it's going to be here in these ads, and I'm going to see you back here next week, same time, same place. But don't forget, very late on Friday night, Late Night Art Attack, I'm here with Raoul Miss You and some of the usual reprobates here from the Madness Entertainment Group. This is Jerome Hinds signing off. Enjoy these trailers and the end credits, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much.
If you like stories about truth, honor, and justice, then you should check out MAGA Man. It is Donald Trump as many now see him, the defender of justice and a warrior for peace through strength. MAGA Man is an all-American style 22-page comic book, so get over to fundmycomic.com and support the culture of truth, honor, and justice. With MAGA Man, the most needed hero of all. MAGA Man.
Ozzy, what are you doing? Come and have a look at this lovely book that was sent over.
You're wrapping in the burning.
Oh, go on and spit the bat out your mouth. No one can understand you like that.
Say hi to 5 dentists and all.
Oh, well, that's not much better. Ozzy, why don't you sing to me? I can always understand you when you sing to me.
Fucking my brains. What is this my publisher sent me? Inked in black with art so sweet.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
Thunderzone Comics returns. 5 all-new comics, Sumo Boy, Weirdo, Marshall Strong, Big House Blues, and Super Cross, plus a free how to draw characters from the Thunderzone. When you back all 5 new releases, the Kickstarter pre-launch campaign is live now.
Thunderzone Comics! Supa-Saturdays, DrawAlong.
you missed the live viewing of any Madness Entertainment Group production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. We'll see you next time on the Madness Entertainment